Hey everybody, it's Brigzilla here, and this video is pretty much unlike all the videos that I've done on this channel so far to date. This video is a top 5 video. It's about a computer game, a PC game or a console game. Some of them have been released on consoles, and it's about one game in particular and its follow-on games, and the series is Call of Duty. Now, this list for me is the best Call of Duty games that have been released to date, so that does not include the new one that's coming out in November, Ghosts. Obviously I can't compare that one because I've never played it, and it also excludes Call of Duty 3, which was released on Xbox only, I believe. I never got a chance to play it because I never had an Xbox, so putting that to bed, let's get on with the top 5. So at number 5 we have Call of Duty Black Ops. This is Black Ops 1, not Black Ops 2, and the reason why this is at number 5 is because it is a good Call of Duty. Now, it's made by Treyarch, which is a really good sign because I think Treyarch have made the better of the Call of Duties since Modern Warfare, i.e. Call of Duty 4. Now, Black Ops, I honestly think is probably one of the best in terms of its engine and in terms of its graphic style and in terms of its gameplay. I liked the fact that the weapons were kind of Vietnam to modern weapons, which is something I quite liked. I like the setting of that kind of Vietnam area. I really did like that setting and the various other settings that there were. The maps were pretty decent in size, and the people at Infinity Ward and at Treyarch hadn't kind of sold out at this point, I don't think. Black Ops was one of the games which was made for the people, I think. Probably the last game to do that. The reason why I like it so much is because I put a lot of time into playing it. Now, if I just quickly check my Steam, I have played this game for 287 hours. Now compare that to Modern Warfare 3, which is 65 hours. That shows you how much I've played it. Now, I don't play a game for 287 hours and not like the game. There has to be some like. It also helps that I was with my clan, the Bad Company, at the time, who also supported the game Black Ops. In recent years they've moved on to other things. Obviously I've not been able to take part in those other things because it wasn't my theme. But when they followed the suit of playing a Call of Duty game, which they have done since the beginning pretty much, Black Ops was a game that I really enjoyed, especially playing with clan members. Now, the only problem with Black Ops, and that's why it's down at number 5, is because Infinity Ward and Treyarch at that point weren't really allowing dedicated servers. Although they say, Black Ops is probably the last one which had any resemblance of dedicated servers, which is something that, as a PC man, I'll say PC man because it sounds cool, I wanted dedicated servers because I wanted to be able to not control, but admin the server like we used to do back in the day. So that's the reason why it's not like number 3 or number 2. Black Ops. At number 4 we have Call of Duty 4, or Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which some people have decided that's what it's called. Now, Call of Duty 4 probably started the trend off for a lot of people. You had a very similar kind of gameplay as, for instance, you see in the Modern Warfare games nowadays. You see the incoming of streaks, and you see the progression of the levels and the weapons. And Modern Warfare is as such. It brings you the Modern Warfare. It brings you the modern weapons, the M16s, the M4s, the HK417, I think, was not in that game, but it would have been if it was made nowadays. Various other guns that are kind of modern for when it was released. Now, the reason why this is at number 4 is because it still had the roots of a Call of Duty game, and that was dedicated servers. That was the ability to play with more than 20 people. The ability to mod and the ability to admin a server correctly. The ability to have and create matches and scrims and such with other clans without having to worry about layouts and all this perks and all that sort of stuff. And although they did have perks, this is probably one of the first kind of Call of Duty games that actually had perks, which in some areas was a good thing, some areas it was a bad thing. This is where people start to get a little bit, I don't know, arsey, in the sense that some people didn't like Modern Warfare, some people loved Modern Warfare, some people obviously played Modern Warfare because of the fact that it was Modern Warfare and it wasn't World War II, which is what the other games before had been, and that was the way it was. Now some people will say that Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare opened the doors for popular first-person shooters, which is absolutely true. As a gateway game, as far as I'm concerned, it opened the door for consoles and for all the bad things to come into games that normally are played by basically adults, and they would occasionally let their children play on the PC. Nowadays, pretty much every kid over the age of like 8 or 9 has got some kind of console and has some kind of Call of Duty game in their collection. The reason why this is not at number 2 and number 1 is because for me, the Modern Warfare is not as good as World War II. I don't like the way things have been popularised and made easier because they want to get more public to come into play. That's maybe a bit of a hipster statement, but that's just the way I feel. At number 3 on the list is Call of Duty World at War. Now this game, made by Treyarch, was the sequel to Modern Warfare, i.e. Call of Duty 4. Most people call it World at War. I used to call it Call of Duty 5 because that's basically what it was, Call of Duty 5. They had gone back to the roots though, and they decided to do something that little bit different for World at War. They took the engine of Call of Duty Modern Warfare and they made it better. Treyarch made the game better, and they introduced something that would change every Treyarch game from then onwards, and that is zombies. Call of Duty World at War, instead of having just a single player and a multiplayer, they actually had 4 modes of game. You had single player, you had co-op single player, which is kind of the same as single player, but in co-op mode you had the multiplayer game, which I might add is probably one of the best experiences in a Call of Duty game I've ever had, and they've got the zombies, which zombies isn't my thing. I'm not a fan of zombie games, really. So the zombies never came to me and said, well, let's play zombies. I've never really done it. I've not really enjoyed it. But you have to, have to point out that they made a massive, massive plus for anyone who wanted to play Call of Duty, and that is added a zombie kind of wave system game type, which I think is ingenious. And it's kept the series going longer and longer, and it's a reason, I think it's honestly the reason why Infinity Ward keep going back to Treyarch, because Treyarch do stuff like this and they make some fantastic games for people who not necessarily would have liked first person shooters. Now the reason why this is at number 3 for me is because they've gone back to the World War II setting. They've added several different things, in the sense that they've added the Japanese, which you don't see in any of the Call of Duty games before World at War. They've also kept with the dedicated servers the ability to mod. Probably one of the most modded games I think World at War was, as far as I'm concerned. It's the one that I saw modded the most, and if I look at my stats, I'll have to use Xfire for this. Just give me a second. And see what my statistics are for World at War. I'll find that it's probably more than Black Ops and Modern Warfare. So let me just quickly log on. I should have done this before I started recording it. And now it's taken about 20 billion minutes to do. So after a short delay, I found the stats that I'm looking for. World at War, 597 hours. 597 hours. It's in my second top of the list of games on Xfire that I've played. World at War, 597 hours. Now there's two reasons for this much time spent. One, clan. I was in a really good clan. I was in the Bad Company clan, the same as I was in for the Black Ops. And that is obviously a massive reason. It's when I joined the Bad Company, I joined for World at War. I played World at War and joined for that. And when you enjoy the game so much, like I did with World at War, I thought it was a fantastic game. It added tanks, it added all the kinds of stuff that I saw in previous Call of Duty games, and they made it look just that little bit better and play that little bit better. The reason why it's not number one though is because number 2 and number 1 are more nostalgic and they just feel and play better as far as I'm concerned. That's why World at War is at number 3 and not number 2 or number 1. Now, we come on to the top 2. Number 2 on the list is Call of Duty 2. Now, when Call of Duty 2 came out, it was a little different to kind of what we were used to. Now, what I was used to at the time was Call of Duty UO, which is United Offensive, or Call of Duty 1 with the add-on pack of UO. Now, UO was great, and it had vehicles in it, and it had massive maps, and it had dedicated servers, and it had all the stuff that you want from a game. It just felt great. Call of Duty 2 was an upgrade of the graphics, and it was an upgrade of various bits and pieces, but they'd taken out some of the features from Call of Duty UO. And some people weren't sure about it, and some people kind of didn't like it, and it felt weird to some people. For me, I thought it was generally a fantastic game, and I loved to play it. I absolutely loved it. Now, at this point, Call of Duty 2 came out in... oh god, I should really have looked this up before. Of course, I do these things on a whim, and... Call of Duty 2 came out in 2005. 25th of October 2005. 2005, I was with a group of players or a community call. What was I with? The 9th SF. Sorry, I had to go back into my brain. The 9th SF. I'd played Call of Duty games pretty much from the start of Call of Duty with a group called the 9th SF. It was an international clan. Most of the higher ups, the people who run the clan were Americans, but there was a UK group team within the clan that played Call of Duty, and I played Call of Duty 2 with that group. Now, the group started to splinter when Call of Duty 2 was released, and so it was very difficult to keep playing Call of Duty 2 with the same people, because people would come in because of Call of Duty 2, and people would leave because of Call of Duty 2, so it was very difficult to play as a group and coherently. Now, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I went back to Call of Duty 2 for quite a long time, and I played it again about 3 years ago, and I still remember how it felt to come back to a game like that and really, really enjoy it, and it has aged fantastically well. And I've often thought about going back to Call of Duty 2 because I still have Call of Duty 2 somewhere in the depths of my games collection. So I may in turn go back to Call of Duty 2 and start playing again, because it's something that I really, really enjoyed. Now, the reason why this is not at number 1 is because number 1 for me was the best all-round game. It has the nostalgia, it has the features and the graphics, and it has the kind of novelty value of being a first-person shooter, one of the first-person shooters. We'll get on to number 1 very soon. So finally, the time has come to choose what comes at number 1. Now, some people will not agree with why I have chosen this game. Now, I'm just going to come out and say it. It's Call of Duty UO. It is United Offensive, the add-on pack for Call of Duty. Now, Call of Duty as a game was fantastic. It was exceptionally good. Especially when Call of Duty, which came out in, what was it, 2003? For me, there was nothing better than Call of Duty. Absolutely nothing better. What I found was better was the expansion pack. Now, an expansion pack is something you don't really see anymore. World of Warcraft do expansion packs. Call of Duty did an expansion pack. A lot of other games at the time do expansion packs at the time. You don't see them anymore. They're called DLC, which I think is pretty shit. Anyway, this expansion pack for Call of Duty came out in 2004, about a year after Call of Duty 1. It came out as United Offensive, and it added just a ton of stuff. Larger and larger, and generally it brought probably the basis of what you'd see now in a Call of Duty game. It brought a ranking system, and it kind of come with additional bonuses like perks and stuff that you'd get when you ranked up your soldier in Call of Duty UO. This was only for the battle at hand though. It wouldn't do it for the game as a character. It did it for every battle. You'd start to level up in the battle, and if you were good enough you'd get to a higher rank and you'd be able to unlock certain things and drop artillery in certain places. Now, that is one of the reasons why I love this game, because every map you'd play there'd be a different outcome in every sort of way, because depending on who you have in your team, these people would play differently, and they'd play better or play worse, and you'd have different people leveling up there and different people leveling up there, and you'd have different weapons, and you weren't kind of cornered, and you weren't like shoved into a system which you can't get out of. You were able to change what you wanted to do. You could change which kind of layout you wanted to play as. You could jump in a tank, or you could jump in a jeep, and they had the various German and US situations. The maps were massive. They were huge. Absolutely. If you saw one of these maps in a Call of Duty nowadays, half the team would get lost every single round because the maps were so big. Playing of an 8v8 or a 10v10 like in Black Ops on a map that was the size in UO, say for instance Foy, for the first 10 minutes or so you wouldn't be able to find any of the enemy because they were so far away. I am over exaggerating this, of course, but generally I think Call of Duty UO was just the best Call of Duty game. I can't see an issue with that. The only issue I could honestly see with that is the fact that it was made in 2004 and it may not have aged well. I haven't gone back to it yet. I do plan to go back to it at some point, and I do plan to see what it's like now, because if I can find out if it's aged well, then there's no way that this game cannot be any less than number 1 on my list. Now, I know some of you are not going to be happy with this list, the top 5. Some of you are going to understand why I've chosen them. Some of you just will not understand. If you don't understand why I've chosen them, please let me know in the comments below. Tell me which are your top 5. And if you even like Call of Duty, which I know some people don't anymore. I will say this though. Since Black Ops, as far as I'm concerned, the games have been terrible. Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 2 have both been shit. And the reason why they've been shit is because they're now being catered... the people who are now being given these games, in terms of what the target audience are kids. Basically 12 to 17 year olds. Now yes, I may be a little bit skeptical because I am now quite old, and I wasn't quite old when the first ones came out. But in my opinion, if you cater for people that are that young, and you leave the people who basically gave you the ability to create these games again, because it was people like me and people like the older generation who still play these first-person shooters, who got Infinity Ward and got Activision and got Treyarch to where they are now. Because if it wasn't for us, those people would not be making the games they are today. And that's a shame, as far as I'm concerned, that the new Call of Duties and Infinity Ward and Activision and what Blizzard and whatever the fuck they are called now, it's a shame that they've had to resort to diluting a really good series. What they should do, in all honesty, stop making Call of Duty games this second. Release Ghosts, get Ghosts out of the way, and stop for 2, maybe 3 years. At the end of those 3 years, come back and rekindle the fire that a Call of Duty game used to be, and give us something amazing, and just fucking blow us away. Don't just come back with the same old shit, copy and pasted over and over again, because that is what's going to happen every year for the next 10 years, is a copy and a paste of the exact same game, just in a slightly different way. And I'm really passionate about this, because I am seriously annoyed with the fact that people like Infinity Ward and like Activision and Blizzard and whatever the fuck are they called will keep basically carbon copying the same game out with a different brand and a different situation, and they'll just keep doing it, and they'll make as much money as possible, and they will not know what the fuck to do it with. Now, this rant was going to come sooner or later in this video. I apologise for it being at the end. Most of you would have probably turned off after 2 or 3 minutes of this video anyway, so only the hardcore people have got to the end of this video, and I salute you, sirs and ladies, of course. And generally, I am happy that you guys have got to this end, and I hope you enjoyed this video to, sufficientness. I don't know, I can't speak anymore. I've lost all the will to live after talking about that rant. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, listening. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and please let me know in the comments below if you have any thoughts on the content of this video.